Hello and welcome, my name is Kaczmar and you are watching Geek Factor. Today, on behalf of Imagine Realm, I want to talk to you about a game called Guardians of XOBOS. Now, this is a strategy game that was launched on a Polish crowdfunding page last year, and it generated quite the buzz and it was actually a bit of a success. Now it got funded and it was met with a general wide critical acclaim from people, from a vast majority of the people that played it. Now it is hoping to get into your heads, into your hearts on an international market through a Kickstarter campaign that is due to launch on February 25th. Now, if the campaign already launched, you can find the link to the campaign in the description below. If it hasn't yet launched, I will put the link in the description the moment the campaign begins. Now, like I said, this is an original game designed by Jarosław Biliński from Imagine Realm. And this game is located on a distant planet of XOBOS, where the main energy source is all but depleted. And the few remaining guardians that are there are trying to fight for dominance, trying to get the most energy out of the energy source and to be superior among all the other guardians. Let's see how to set up the game, and from the beginning we'll also describe how the game varies, how the setup basically varies between a 2-player game, a 3-player game or a 4-player game. So first you want to place the game board in the middle of the playing area and make sure you have the right side up. Now what do I mean by that? The game board is double-sided. Now you choose this side of the board if you want to play a 2 or a 4-player game. Now this side of the board is titled or called Arenium. If you want to play a 3-player game, you simply flip it to the other side, and this side is called Muenara. I basically invented that pronunciation on the spot. I hope that's how you would pronounce it as well. As you can see, it has the basis for 3 players. The other side of the board, Arenium, has 4 bases right here. So obviously, if you're playing a 4-player game, each of those bases is used. If you're playing a 2-player game, you pick one side of the board. You can't pick this side and this side. It cannot be diagonal. They have to be next to each other like so. So it can be this side or this side or this side or so. So you can only pick two of them, but they have to be adjacent. Also, this is the round track. As you can see, the game consists of 15 rounds, and each round is divided into 2 phases: a movement phase and a development phase. This is how they are represented on the round track. So you take one of the orange markers and you place it on the movement phase of the first round. And then each time you finish the movement phase, you will flip it to the development phase of that round, and then you will move it to the movement phase of the next round, and so on and so forth until the game ends. So that's how you set up the game board. You then take the technology tiles and you separate them into stacks depending on their type and on their rank. As you can see, you have 3 types of the first rank technology tiles, 3 types of the second rank, and 3 types of the third rank. The number of the rank is represented by the number of these symbols that you can find on the tiles. And you keep this stack right here next to the game board. Next to the board, you place 70 energy crystals and 50 building resources. Now obviously you do not have 50 building resources in this stack right here. This is only because I want to keep this area during the shooting this how to play video a bit more tidy, so I'm using fewer components that you actually have. But don't worry, you have a lot more energy crystals and a lot more building resources actually in the game box. Energy crystals come in 2 colors. You can see the green color where 1 crystal is worth 1 point. But later on in the game, you may want to exchange them into those purple energy crystals, because each purple energy crystal is worth 5 points. Now let's place all the tokens near the game board. First of all, you have the upgrade tokens, which are 2-sided. One of them give you the ability to heal yourself during a fight. The other ones increase your power. Then you have the connection tokens, which are also two-sided depending on how you want to connect to another guardian. We'll go over that later in the video. and attack and counter-attack tokens, which you will put on the board when you declare an attack. And then we have tokens dedicated to buildings. Now these are the construction tokens on which both sides look the same. And then we have 5 different types of buildings. We have reactors, watchtowers, technology buildings, energy wells, and mines. Now each player picks a color, and in that color they take their own player sheet, 4 guardian figures, and quark figures. Also, in that respective color, you make sure you take the corresponding leader token. Now, what's a leader in this case? I'll tell you in just a second. As you can see, there are 4 quarters on your player sheet. Each of those quarters corresponds to a separate guardian. Now, the way to tell them apart is using those symbols. As you can see, those symbols are printed right here on those quarters, and each guardian has a spot right here in the back where you can place this little round white token to make sure that you can tell which guardian is which, because as you can see, those symbols correspond to the symbols you find on the player sheet, which means that this area is for this guardian and this area is for this guardian, and so on and so forth. Now you take your guardians and you put them on the base. Now the way you put them is really up to you, as long as you remember 2 things. You need to place 2 guardians in the base and then 2 guardians on the spaces adjacent to your base. So for example, we can put this guardian right here, this one right here, we'll put this one on this spot, and then this one on this spot. Additionally, you get to take 2 quarks and place them on the exit spot of the base. So you can have the quarks and the guardian on the same spot. Each player also gets a screen, because a lot of the things you will be doing in this game, you will be doing them in secret behind the screen. The screen is also useful because it's a useful cheat sheet for any stuff you might want to remember during the game. This one is obviously in Polish, but yours will be in English. The final thing you do is you adjust the initial values of all your guardians. Now before you do that, you might want to pick a leader. The leader will be one of the guardians. You can pick it at random. Once you do, you place this leader token on that guardian. Now the way you indicate those initial values is using those orange tokens. Now for each guardian, the initial power value is 1 and the initial health value is 6, so obviously the max, which means that during the game you might be getting wounds which will reduce your health. Eventually it might cause your health to go all the way down to 0, in which case your guardian will die. Now with your leader, the only difference is that his power value begins at 2. Finally, place the production sheet next to your player sheet and also indicate your initial production levels. Now as far as the energy crystals are concerned, it is 0 because you have no wells to begin with. And also you don't have any mines to begin with, but you will always get, even with no buildings, as you can see right here, there's the sign here says there are no buildings of this type. You will still always get one energy resource, one building resource during the production phase, the development phase. You will see about that later on in the video. So you can place this marker right here. And then whenever you construct a building of that type, you just move this marker down this track. Finally, each player takes 3 building resources. So now that we have all that set up, let's take a closer look at some of the things we have in front of us, like the game board, the player sheets, the production sheets, so that you have a better understanding of those things while we move forward with the tutorial. Let's begin by taking a look at the board. Now what you can see here is obviously, like I told you, the round track, 15 rounds in the game, each round divided into a movement phase and a development phase. Then you have spots. Now you have regular spots like so. Here, right here in the middle of the board, you have the energy source, and there will be a way for you during the game. You will have to achieve something. You will have to get one of the technology tiles to be able to draw energy crystals straight from the energy source. And right next to this energy source, you have those irradiated spaces. Certain actions, certain abilities refer specifically to those irradiated spaces. Also, you cannot construct buildings on those. Let's go back to the player sheet now. As I've told you, you have 4 quarters. Each quarter represents a separate guardian. Now, the way this works is you have those tracks, right? The health track, the power value track. The power value is, the health track is pretty obvious, right? This keeps your health, this keeps the score of your health to see how well you are doing or how close to dying you are. This in turn, however, shows you how much damage you will be able to try and inflict upon attacking, right? This is going to be the core value. Now, above that, you have the so-called power value transfer track. Why? This is directly connected to those 4 areas right here that are called connection slots. Why? Because during the game, you will be able to support your fellow guardian. One guardian will be able to support another guardian. They will do so by putting these tokens on that slot. So for example, this guardian will be supporting this one, and therefore his power value will no longer be counted, but he will be supporting it by 2, which will cause us to move this marker to the power value transfer track. Because the idea is that this guardian's value is now currently being counted. This one doesn't matter. What matters is how much power we transfer to the supported guardian. So in order to show that, this is why we are moving this marker. So that to show that we do not care about the power value of this guardian, we care about how much power he is transferring to this one. So we are placing this marker right here on the top, and then we are adding 2 to the power value of this guardian, because this is how that works. Now obviously, as you can see by those lines, you can support it anyway, so each guardian can support any other guardians. I mean, there are limitations, but I will get to them later on in the video. You can also support them using your power value, but you can also support them using health, which is where you will be able to, which is where the attack, if you support that guardian, for example, that guardian will be able to take 1 less damage. Again, you will see more about that later on in the video. So these are the so-called connection slots, but they are also used for building buildings, and how that works we will see later on. This is your production sheet, which basically shows you how much you can produce and also what types of buildings you already have. Now, as you can see, we have mines, which are shown right here, and then we have energy wells, which are shown right here. Now, depending on how many of those buildings you have, you will be moving this marker or this marker down the corresponding track. Now, these buildings look exactly like so. So the energy wells look like this. The mines, however, look like this. They will produce building resources, and these will produce crystals. You also have reactors, which will help you achieve a better score at the end of the game. You have watchtowers, which can add to your power value and can even attack guardians on their own. And you have technology buildings, which allow you to purchase technology tiles. We'll go over that in a second, but as you can see, each building is 2-sided. This is the complete side. This is how the building looks like when it's completed. This side is used when the building is under construction. Okay, now that we have that, let's begin. The game is played through a series of rounds. We have 15 rounds, as you saw. Each round, as I described at the very beginning, is divided into movement phase and development phase. Movement phase is where we take our guardians and our quarks and we move them around the board a bit. And then the development phase, as a result of that, battles can occur and probably will. And then the development phase is where we get to, as the name suggests, develop ourselves. We can upgrade our guardians, we can connect them so they can support each other in battle, we can construct buildings, we can do all sorts of things. But first, let's describe the movement phase. And in that movement phase, players basically use their movement points to try and move around in more strategic positions. Now, How that works and what can happen as a result of that, let's go over that now. So let's begin going over the movement phase by explaining first that you can move all of your figures. So the way this works is from the first player in a clockwise order, every player performs their movement phase. And in your movement phase, you can move all of your guardians and all of your quarks, each and every single one of them that you have present on the game board. Now, how does movement work? Well, first of all, quarks can move by 2 spaces each. Now, guardians only move by 1 space each. And this is very important. 2 guardians cannot share the same space. And when it comes to quarks, you can have up to 3 quarks at a single space. And what's more important, quarks and guardians can share a space. So the most units you can have on a single space is 1 guardian and then 3 quarks. Now, what can happen as a result of a move? Well, if you finish your move, or if you simply are on a spot, if it's before a move or after a move, if you are on a spot that is adjacent through this tunnel, as you can see, these tunnels, these corridors make 2 spaces connected by those corridors adjacent. So if you are on a spot adjacent to a space, adjacent to a space where there is an enemy guardian, you can declare an attack. Now, the way you do that, you take this attack token and you point it in the direction of the attacked guardian. You are the attacker, this is the attacked. Now, in this moment, this guardian can declare, once you've completed all your movement actions, this guardian, because the way it works is you move all of your guardians and then you declare attacks. Now, this guardian has the chance to declare a counterattack, which means he's not going to be suffering damage, he's also going to be attacking which means this is not going to be an attack where only the attacked guardian gets damage. No, this is going to be a battle. Now, how attacks work and how battles work, we will go over that later on in the video. So this is one thing that can happen. You can declare an attack. The attacked guardian can evade an attack. Now, how can they do that? Well, it's fairly simple. You simply move away from the space, provided you still have the movement action available. So, for example, if this player was playing before this one, and he played his turn, moved the guardian right here, and then placed this attack token, and this player hasn't gone yet, and now it's this player's turn, because he still hasn't played this round, he can use his movement action to move away from the attack. Then the attack will be broken, the token is removed. Now, this is important for you to get, because you don't have to move. You don't have to move your quarks, you don't have to move your guardians. You simply have the option to. So if this is now this player's turn and he wants there to be an attack, he wants there to be battle for some reason, he simply doesn't move his guardian in his turn. However, if there is a different situation, for example, we have the red player's turn. He doesn't want to move this guardian. For example, they were placed here during the movement phase of a previous round. So the red player's turn, he sees he's right here. He doesn't want to move. He wants to attack this guardian. Okay, he moved all the other 2 guardians, his own red guardians. He finished the movement, then he declared an attack against this guardian. Now we move on to this player's turn, and he says, no, I don't want to be attacked, I want to evade an attack. So he moves away. That attack is broken. But now this guardian can now freely move onto a spot that was occupied by the guardian who evaded battle. Now, how does this work? This is the only scenario in which it can work, because this guardian was able to move onto this spot because he hasn't used his movement point this round. So you have 1 movement point per guardian per round. and he can either use it during his movement phase or when he steps onto a field during when an attacked guardian by him is evading. So this is the only way for the guardian to move when it's not your round, it's not your turn, and only if you hadn't actually moved during your turn. This is an important distinction to remember. What's also important, you can be attacked from different directions, but you can never attack an empty space. Now, this is all that happens when it comes to attacks and battles during the movement phase, because immediately after the movement phase ends for all the players, we resolve all attacks and all battles in turn order. However, we are not going to go over how to play through an attack or through a battle. At this point, we are going to do that later on in the video. So for now on, let's move on to the final thing that can happen as a result of a move action. Now, you all have your own buildings. For example, the blue player has his building right here. Now, if the red player moves onto the blue player's building, he immediately destroys it. Now, what is important to remember is that you cannot destroy a watchtower. This is very important. Now, once you've destroyed an enemy building by moving onto that spot, you immediately get 2 energy crystals as a reward. Now, there is, however, a technology available for you to get, if you achieve it, obviously, if you acquire it, that allows you to take over a building or to seize a building. When you seize a building, you move onto the spot of that building. Now, you remove that player's building from the game board. You remove it from the game board completely, and instead you place your own building without bearing any of the production costs. So you simply build this one at this spot during the game for free. And also you receive not 2, but 3 energy crystals as a reward. Now, it is important at this point to see that the buildings have outlines depending on the color of the player, right? So this one is a blue player's building and this one is a red player's building. It might be a bit tough for the colorblind, so please use the assistance of your fellow players. Also, as a result of the buildings being built, destroyed, and so on and so forth, remember to upgrade your production. So for example, if I had 2 energy wells and one of them was just destroyed by being trampled on by a guardian, I have to update my production on my production sheet, because this, as you know, represents how many buildings of that type I possess. So after the movement phase, attacks will be resolved, okay? But we will go over the attacks in just a moment. After the attacks are resolved, we move on to the development phase. Now let's go over the development phase. Here in the development phase, people can upgrade their guardians, can construct buildings. Now, an important caveat here is those player screens. Usually, those player screens are placed in front of the player sheets, and most of the things we do in the development phase happens in a way that the other players cannot see. So other players, my opponents, will not be able to see what buildings I am constructing in the moment or how my guardians are trying to support one another. Let's go over that now so you can see and you can have a better picture of what I just said. Now, the first thing you need to understand about the development phase is that most of it takes place behind the screen, so that your opponents don't actually see what you are doing on your player sheet. Now, I will, however, remove the player screen simply for the purposes of visibility and clear presentation of the rules. But please bear in mind that this should technically be covering up your player sheet so that the other players can see it. It is going to be especially important when resolving attacks and battles, because this game really counts on you guys being very, very honest and not lying about the values you have right here. Right, so let's go over the development phase. Now, the first thing players do during their development phase, you can perform it all together at once. is obviously check your production. So in this case, for example, this player has three energy wells built, which means he or she gets 3 energy crystals, and this player has 2 mines built, which means he gets 5 building resources. Now, that's the first thing. We check our production, we make sure what's what. Now we can go on to another thing. We can connect guardians. What does it mean to connect guardians? Well, first of all, if you want to connect guardians, those 2 guardians must be on adjacent spots, spaces. Like I said, adjacent means connected by such a corridor. When 2 guardians are on adjacent spaces, they can connect to one another. How do they do that? Well, you simply take one of the connection tokens and place it on a connection slot on a given guardian. So for example, let's say that the triangle guardian wants to connect to the circle guardian, right? So here we have the triangle, here we have the circle. Now for example, he has 2 options. He can either support him with the power value, or he can help him heal, and by that I mean reduce damage when faced, if that guardian was facing an attack. How does that work? Simply, if you place the power value side up of the token, you take your own value of power and you shift the marker either down or up, depending on which guardian is doing what, to the power value transfer track, like I showed you earlier in the video. So this triangle guardian has a power value of 1. He knows he's not going to use that next round, but he fears that the circle guardian actually might need it. So for that purposes, he is going to transfer his value of 1 to the circle player. That circle player then updates his or her power value by moving the marker on the power value track. So this is why we do it. We do it to show that our power value is no longer relevant. All we care about is the power value of the guardian that we are connecting to, that we are supporting. Now, if you support it through healing, with healing, you obviously don't update anything on that track, because this simply allows you to help the guardian face any attacks and face any battles. What is important, if you move together and you can still hold the connection. If only one of you moves, you break the connection. You have to remain on adjacent fields, on adjacent spaces for that connection to work. And as you can see with those lines right here, any guardian can be connected to any guardian. For purposes of any explanation, this is called the reinforcing guardian. This is the reinforced guardian, right? Because it's the triangle guardian that is supporting the circle guardian. So this is connecting guardians. This is how you can support one another. Well, how your guardians can support one another during the game. Another option you can do during this development phase, you also do that in secret. Remember, keep it in secret. Other players can't see which guardian is supporting which guardian and in what way. This also goes for the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is constructing buildings. If you want to construct buildings, well, first of all, your guardian cannot be reinforcing any other guardians, because you're going to use, if you want to construct buildings, you're going to use that connection slot. So when you construct a building, you first decide which building you want to construct. And let's say that I want to construct an energy well, and I'm the circular guardian, so I'm going to construct an energy well. What I do is I take the energy well token with my color around it, right? I flip it to the under construction side and I put it on my connection slot. So this is quite a good way of remembering that if you're constructing a building, you cannot be reinforcing another guardian, right? Because obviously if this is here, you cannot place this one here. Now you put it right here like so. Then underneath that guardian, which is building that energy well, you place a construction token. Why? Because remember, this is happening behind a screen. So other players don't know what type of building you are actually constructing, they just know you're constructing something. So they're not going to know that this is going to be an energy well. Once you've placed that token right here, you place one of the building resources from your supply, from your personal supply, on top of that building. Now, during the development phase of the next round, you will be able to add another building resource to any buildings you have under construction. And the moment you fulfill the cost of that building, as you can see, the cost is right here with those small squares. In this case, it is 2 building resources. Once you've completed the cost, you can remove those, return those to the general supply. Well, you will return them to the general supply when paying them. And then you flip the building to the constructed side and you remove the construction token, you replace it with that building token. Once you've placed the building, you obviously update your production. In this case, we constructed an energy well, we update this. If we constructed a mine, we would update this. If we constructed a technology building, we would update this. So this is how you construct a building. Now remember, you have to be on that spot, on that space with that guardian in order to construct. You cannot move if you want to keep constructing a building. Also, what might happen is you may not be able to pay the cost. For example, this is going to be a situation like so. This is the situation we're going to have. And for example, we don't have any building resources to put on this token. That means we're not going to do anything this round with this building. It's going to have to wait for the next round until we're a bit better off when it comes to our building resources. I will also do a small reminder of what each building does, what mines, energy wells, technology buildings, what all those do a bit later on. Now, another thing you can build is units. If you want to build your quarks, each quark costs 1 energy crystal in order to build. You take the energy crystal from your personal supply, you put it into the general supply, and then you place the quark in the base space. You can also construct guardians, because if guardians reduce their health to 0, they die. Which means you can take a guardian and you can build it again. Now how does that work? Well, first of all, that costs 5 energy crystals. So you take those 5 energy crystals from your personal supply, you return it to the general supply, and then you can place the guardian on the board. Where do you place it? You can place it on a technology building. It doesn't have to be on the base space. Another thing you can do during development phase is purchase technology. Now, in order to purchase technology, you need to have technology buildings on the board. If you have 1 technology building, you can only purchase the technology tiles of the rank 1. If, however, you have 2 technology buildings on the map, you can then purchase technology tiles from rank 2. And as you can guess, if you have 3 technology buildings, you can purchase the technology tiles with rank 3. Now you can only have 1 tile from each type. Once you have that ability. Now I'm not going to go over the technology tiles abilities over here because it would take too long, but in the rulebook you can find a description right here. And once you understand the basic rules of the game, understanding how those technology tiles help you and assist you is going to be quite obvious. When purchasing technology tiles, remember each technology tile costs you 2 building resources, and remember that you can only purchase 1 technology tile per round. Other than purchase technology, you can also upgrade your guardians during this development phase. How do you do that? Well, you can upgrade your guardians in 2 ways, and you will always do that by placing those tokens, those upgrade tokens, on the appropriate quarter. Now, how does that work? You can either upgrade its power or you can upgrade its healing ability. Healing ability, power is simple, you simply increase that guardian's power. Healing ability, however, allows you to heal one incoming wound. You will see about incoming wounds during the when I describe the attack. So if you want to purchase it, if you want to upgrade your Guardian, first of all, the Guardian you want to upgrade needs to be on a technology building. Then you need to have the appropriate technology tile, which means, for example, you cannot upgrade your Guardian right now if you don't have any of those tiles. If you have this technology tile, you can upgrade your Guardian with 1 healing or 1 power. This is very important because when you have this tile as well, then you can upgrade your Guardian with another power or another healing unit. But remember, you can never mix those. So for example, if I have this technology, then and my Circle Guardian is on a technology building, I am going to use that to upgrade my Guardian with 1 power. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to upgrade it right here. It costs 1 energy crystal. I return it to the general supply. And now I cannot upgrade it anymore because this technology tile allows me to upgrade only once. I need to get this technology tile to upgrade it again, but because I decided to go for the power upgrade, I cannot upgrade it with healing. I cannot mix those. I have to upgrade it again with power. So this is simple. You can have 2 upgrades per type and you can never mix those. Finally, during the development phase, if you have a watchtower, you can arm it with a energy crystal. You can then use that, for example, if you're attacking while standing on a watchtower with crystals, you can then use that power because 1 crystal will give it 1 power. You can use that power to attack, but remember, you can also use the watchtower to attack on its own. I will get into that when I describe buildings. But if you decide to do that, you lose those energy crystals. And remember, energy crystals are worth points in the end of the game. Also, what's important, if you want to build a reactor, and you might want to do that because they are worth points at the end of the game, they help you get more points in the end of the game. When you construct it, you have to spend 5 building resources at once. At the same time, you cannot wait 5 turns. And you do not place that building on the board. You keep it on your player sheet. This is the only building that you build that you keep on your own player sheet. And there you have it. Everything happens exactly the same way: movement phase, possible battles, development phase, and then we move on to the next round, and so on and so forth. After each development phase, the first player marker is given to the next player on the left, and the game continues until the very end of the 15th round when the final score is calculated. But before we get to the finish line, let's go back and talk about 2 things that I've mentioned quite a lot during this tutorial: the battles and the buildings. Let's go over the battle in a bit more detail to see how you resolve battles, and then let's go over do a quick summary of the buildings, the different types of buildings we have in the game, and what each of those types provide. So resolving battles and attacks is pretty much just taking the power value and reducing it by any healing value that the Guardians have. Now here we have a situation where 2 Guardians are fighting and those 2 are just standing nearby. Now the situation we have right here is a counterattack. That means it's a battle. Now the first thing we do is we resolve every battle. We go from the first player in a clockwise order, and then we resolve any battles that those players are in. After we've done that, we resolve attacks. Now battles and attacks are pretty much the same because attack is simply inflicting damage, but in a battle both sides inflict damage, whereas in an attack that was not countered, only one side will deal the damage. Now, how are battles resolved? It's very simple. First of all, we take a look if there are any quarks involved in that battle. Now, right here we can see that there are 2 quarks and 2 quarks from the red one and 1 quark from the blue one. So the first thing that happens in a battle is quarks destroy each other in a 1-to-1 ratio. So one quark gets destroyed two quarks get destroyed from each side at the same time. So one blue quark, one red quark. So the red quarks, the single red quark remains here because there are no longer any blue quarks on the other player's side. So then what do we do with the battle? The players simply attack each other. Now the first attack that happens is the attack from the player with fewer energy crystals and or quarks on his space. Now as you can see, the red player is standing on a space with a watchtower that has a single energy crystal and a single quark, which means that this one has the blue one obviously has fewer of those, so the blue one will attack first. The blue one resolves its attack, then the red player resolves its attack, and so on and so forth. And then we go around the board and simply resolve any of the one-sided attacks that happened. So how does attacks get resolved? Let's say, in this case, the red one is attacking the blue one, right? So we've changed the order, the red one is attacking the blue one, but the single attack in a battle is resolved exactly the same way as a single attack, as all those other single attacks are resolved after the battle. So what happens? Well, we take the value of the power. This is the amount of damage that the attacking guardian is trying to inflict, and we reduce it by the number of any healing abilities that the attacked guardian has. So because every guardian at the beginning of the game has a base power of 1, but that can be changed throughout the game. So what affects a power value? First of all, any upgrades a guardian might have. So for example, we have this circular, this circular red guardian. Now his base value, his base power was 1, but it got increased by 2 upgrades. It got upgraded twice, so it went from 1 to 3. Then the triangle guardian was connected to it through supporting it with power, because the triangle's guardian's power value was at 1. His power value transfer was also at 1. So the circle guardian received an additional 1 point of power. So right now this player stands at 4 power. Add to it a single quark and a single energy crystal. That player deals 6 damage. This is how much we have. The power value, which was upgraded, which was enhanced through upgrades and through the connection from another guardian, and the crystal from a watchtower and a quark. That sum is 6. Remember, you have to be actually standing on the space with the watchtower, and the watchtower has to have a crystal. So now that we have that value, that's 6, we remove the quark. Each quark is always destroyed when it takes part in a battle. The same goes for the energy crystal. It is simply spent. So that's an attack value of 6. Now the blue one obviously has some ways of defending himself. First of all, the blue, this was supposed to be here. The blue X guardian has an upgrade 1 healing. So that reduces the incoming damage by 1. So that's no longer 6, that's 5. Now additionally, the circle guardian is connected to him through healing, which means it supports his healing, which allows it to reduce the incoming damage by an additional 1. So altogether, from the upgrade, from the connection, we have 2 fewer damage. So that damage is reduced from 6 to 4. Unfortunately, we no longer have any other anything else that could help us. Obviously, if we had quarks on the space, then those quarks could take that damage instead. So let's say there was 1 quark, okay? So we are taking that quark away, so we are reducing the damage by another 1. So we went from 6 to 3. But unfortunately, we don't have anything else, which means we have to take 3 damage. If the health was reduced all the way down to 0, we would simply be removed from the board. It is also worth noting that each leader, it has the automatic ability. Not only does the leader start with the power value of 2, the leader also can heal itself by 1. So by the way, when we were calculating the attack power, we forgot that the leader, he was the leader, was starting with the power value of 2. So there should have been 7 damage dealt, not 6. So let's say this wasn't the leader, and the leader can always reduce its damage by 1. That's a default ability of a leader. What's also important, if it so happens, and it is possible, that for example, I don't know, the attacking guardian doesn't have any upgrades, so it's only attacking with a single 1 power value, and the attacked guardian has all of those healing upgrades, so the healing amount actually exceeds the incoming damage amount, that excess healing amount counts to restoring a guardian's health. You can never get more than 6, so this is a cool way of restoring your health if you're being attacked by someone who has very little power, but you have a lot of healing ability connected to you through upgrades or connection. You obviously get rewards. If you manage to kill a guardian, you get 5 energy crystals as a reward. If you manage to kill a guardian and you haven't moved in that round yet, you can still move. Remember, it's the same situation when somebody evaded an attack. If you, as the guy who declared the attack, haven't moved yet, you can now move onto the space that was just abandoned. Right, to finish up this segment, let's go over the buildings and what they do. Let's sum those buildings up. So the types of buildings we have. We have mines, which provide you with building resources. We have energy wells, which provide you with energy crystals. How and what the ratio is, that is shown on your production sheet. Then we have technology buildings. Now, technology buildings, there's a bit more to them. First of all, they allow you to purchase technology tiles. Another thing, if you're standing on top of a technology building, you can spend 1 energy crystal from your personal supply in order to fully heal yourself. So, for example, let's say the Triangle Guardian's health value was at 4. He is standing on top of a technology building. We are spending 1 energy crystal. His health is restored to max. Also remember that if you lost any guardians during the battle, you have the ability to get them restored through the technology building, but you have to pay 5 of the building resources. Anything you do as a way of using the technology buildings, you do that in the development phase. Another interesting type of building is the watchtower. Once you've placed a watchtower on the board, it can do a few things. First of all, each development phase you can place 1 crystal, an energy crystal on it from your supply, from your personal supply. A single watchtower cannot have more than 3 energy crystals. Now, what's interesting is that as I've shown you when discussing the battle, if you're standing on top of a watchtower that is loaded with energy crystals and you are performing an attack, those energy crystals add up to your power value. But there is something more to them. If an opponent's guardian moves within range of a watchtower, and within range is to a space adjacent to the space with the watchtower, the player who owns that watchtower can simply say, hey, I'm dealing you 1 damage. I'm basically shooting at you from the watchtower. So that's that. Obviously, that guardian can be healed if he has some healing abilities or if he's connected by healing to another guardian, but that is basically a free shot that we can give to another guardian. You can use all of them at once to, for example, try and inflict 3 points of damage on a guardian that happens to be within the range of your watchtower. And the last type are the reactors. Remember, you have to build them in a single action and then place them on your player sheets, because those allow you to get the victory points. And that's that. And after the 15th round, you take a look at what's in front of you and you see how many points you've managed to collect. After 15th round, each player takes the amount of the guardians they have left on the board, adds to it the number of energy crystals they have on their player sheet. The energy crystals on their watchtowers do not count. So guardians on the board, energy crystals plus energy crystals on the player sheet. They take that sum and multiply it by the number of reactors they have built. That is their final score. The player with the most victory points is the winner. If there is a tie, the player that has more energy tiles is the winner. If there is still a tie, then the tied players share the victory. And that's pretty much it. I hope I gave you a good idea of what this game is like. I hope I helped you make a decision of whether this is something you might enjoy or not. Now, this game is fairly simple, but there are a few nuances, there are a few minor things you need to remember. There is a Q&A at the end of towards the end of the Polish rulebook, so I can only imagine the Q&A will also be there towards the end of the English rulebook. By the way, the rulebook is available to download, the draft version of the rulebook is available to download on the Kickstarter campaigns page. And the link to their page, like I said, is either in the description below or will be there in a matter of days. Having said that, if you have any questions about the mechanics, about the theme, about anything really, do not hesitate, ask those questions in the comments below, and either I or someone from Imagined Realm will try to assist you and help you make an informed decision. And that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. I will be doing videos in English occasionally. And until then, thank you for watching. On behalf of Imagined Realm, thank you for watching, and I hope I see you soon. Thank you and bye-bye.